With that said, let's move into the first open-ended question we have. What is the biggest challenge with product lifecycle management?
I'm
Go
going
to
to say
Ron
this.
first.
Rob, what do you
I
say?
was just going to say, it's got to be lack of data, and truly how you measure what stage you're at. I think is, I think if the data was there and we were clear about what maturity actually means. I don't know if we have properly defined every stage. It's different for every
Mhm.
product and every company, but I truly believe if I was to say to somebody inside Broadridge today, is this what stage of growth this product is? We use horizons. What
Mhm.
what,
Yeah.
what horizon this is in? I think you'd have three different. We have three horizons. I think you have three different answers. Well, maybe two because nobody would think it's in the early stage. So I would
Interesting.
have to say definitions and data.
Well, but aren't those four stages defined by the rate of change? I mean, when you're,
Very
less than
subjective.
45 degrees and then you become more than 45 degrees, you've hit the hockey stick. So you're now in the growth phase. And then when you go from less than 45 degrees to more than 45 degrees, then you're in the stability, the mature phase.
Yeah, but it's more of but that's, I mean, that's products typically work in a stepwise function.
Hmm.
And so it's very hard to determine where you are you're never in a hockey stick, you're in a step. And, so you're going up and
Oh,
you're
good point.
plateauing up and plateauing. And so I think definitionally, it's just, it looks good on paper. I'm going to use everything. It looks good on PowerPoint, but you know, reality is we sell, we plateau, we sell, we plateau, we go down a little, we sell, we plateau. A new
It's,
entrant comes in the market, we
which is why a trailing 12 months, and I love the 3 months over 12 month as a way to do that. Something Steve and I have talked about before is that even an S curve is really made up of a whole bunch of small S curves, right?
Hmm.
And
right.
so that's sort of stepwise. And if you're doing a good job of segmenting and subsegmenting your market, you're driving that, right? Okay, here's the next one we're going to, and you're continually getting that second curve to start half mile before you get to the creek. And it can get you smooth, but the reality is it always changes. Each subsegment is going to adopt a little differently. You're going to have to change your language there. Uh, but the step is exactly more than that versus the smooth. Steve,
Yeah.
Hmm.
your take on this?
Well, when in doubt, I always go back to roles. And it occurred to me only later in life that every product management job I had was for a product in a different part of the life cycle. And so one company, I needed business skills, and in another company, I needed technical skills. And in my first product management job, I really needed sales and marketing skills. And so to me, the biggest challenge in lifecycle management is recognizing that we need three or more, but at least three very different minds in managing products at different stages of the life cycle. And so, I came in with a sales and marketing background, and my first job, it was great. My second job, they threw me into a PO role, a product owner role. And suddenly I'm nerding out with the nerds and the nerdordium, and I'm like, I can't even have conversations with you guys because, I'm a Star Wars guy, not a Star Trek guy.
Yeah. No, it is true because I'm thinking about. I've often been that mature decline person who has to figure out the next curve. Uh, Doing that is different than being the person helping drive growth, and how do you do it there?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's really fascinating to think about product life cycle reflected in the role of a person. I mean, that is, I'm just thinking about what, you're either you're either launching and thinking, and evaluating the market and doing discovery, or you're spending all your time with technology because you're maintaining, the product, and it's a more technology job versus,
Mhm.
or you're trying. We don't really have people that think the back end of this, but or there'd be somebody at the life cycle stage with the grants roles where you're thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Never thought about it that way, and it's really fascinating to put that spin on it.
Well, this is something that's obsessed me over the last few years, is that we've got this one title, product manager, and it means 165 different things depending on what company you're in, right? And I've had that title 3 times, and I've had extremely different expectations in all 3 times. And I think it does ultimately translate to now, next, and future. The now job, if your product is in the now, if you're responsible for increasing the now, that means you're a growth guy. It means you need to be doing sales and marketing stuff. If you're in the next mode, what focusing on what's going to be in the next release, you need to be technical. And if you're thinking about the future, you need to really be systematic and well, a business person. And I know business is where Grant is strong, and I tend to be stronger in sales and marketing. Although I have learned to be strong in working with technology, and I love working with developers. I've gotten fairly irritated with everyone else, but I love developers now. And those are, very different mindsets. So that's something for you to take back to the office, Rob. Do we have we've got the right people? The question is whether we're asking them to wear the right hat.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important.
I completely agree, Steve. When I wrote this question, my first thought was sort of that we look at products in the rearview mirror, not the front window. And too often the way that companies manage life cycles is in a rearview mirror, which sort of goes to that, turn half mile before you get there type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, then Rob, you got me started to think about technical debt and how the decisions you make earlier in the life cycle can have a major impact on the decisions that you have to make at the later stage of the life cycle. You talk about getting to that place where you're the dominant market share, yet you have all this technical debt you have to reinvest in instead of dropping that stuff down. And all of a sudden, technical debt started coming up in my head as one of the biggest challenges with the life cycle, because it's the trade-offs you make early that cost you later.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And furthermore, the reason tech debt is so bad and so systemic is it's below the line, right? I mean, nobody says, "Hey, we really need to reinvest in the architecture to increase sales." There's always going to be a new feature request, a new something above, in the visible specter. And my analogy is, I want to replace my carpet, but my roof leaks. And who wants to replace their roof? I mean, that's no fun. I want to replace the carpet, and maybe I'll do that right before I sell the house, right? But if I live here much longer, I think I'm going to have to repair that roof. And nobody wants to pay for that. And that's I think the real challenge we have with tech debt inside a company. Nobody in the executive ranks, except perhaps the VP of development, wants to pay for it.
Well, nobody knows how much it is, how much it's costing. And I can tell you, based on all the studies that I've seen, and I've had extensive conversations with Gartner about this, it's 50%. So you take companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars that they spend in technology development,
and half is going to tech debt.
Going to run, to that run, and it's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling.
And those are steady state projects versus priority projects, which means that it's underneath the radar. There's no ticket open. It's less than 200 hours.
Your salespeople aren't going, "Oh God, a new thing I can sell." It's just keeping the thing that they already sold going.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I could make an argument, and maybe this is a whole different topic, that the problem with technical debt is the name, right? Steve, you use the analogy, and I've written a blog on this, right? The guy that, whole bunch of houses sold in their neighborhood this year because of the, COVID and everything else. But if you look at how quickly houses sell and for what prices they sell, all of it's based on the technical debt, the roof, the driveway, the gutters, the siding, the kitchen, right? If you haven't updated your kitchen, it's a concept a lot of people struggle with tech debt, but it's a concept that you can take to your roof versus your carpet versus your driveway versus your gutters versus your kitchen, right?
Well, because of the measurable economic loss, and it came out of the M&A world, when you were going to acquire a company and you were doing a code evaluation, and you would look at the code and you'd say, holy shit, there's a ton of debt that's on this code because it's out of, it's out of whatever, out of sync
Yeah.
with, and I think I think it's, trust me, development people don't like to hear it because it means that something's wrong with the architecture, but because the architecture is not scalable
Yeah.
or modernized. But I think it's the best way to describe it, because from a product management standpoint, I have to, I have to do this before I can do that. And it's
Yeah.
that's going to make me more money.
Mhm.
No, I get it.
Yeah. And the origin of it was actually, I think, a reference back to credit cards. At some point you're in so much financial debt that all you're doing is paying debt on the debt.
Yeah.
You're luckily, to try and you're never paying down the principal. You're just paying off the credit card, the minimum,
The
right?
interest, you're
And it's
paying
just
interest.
getting worse and worse and worse. And I think that's why whoever created this metaphor chose the word debt, which I think is actually quite accurate. I mean, you see, these kids coming out of college with $150,000 worth of economic debt, financial
Yeah.
debt, and you go, let's do some math on the back of a napkin here. It will take the rest of your life to pay off that debt, unless one of us dies and leaves you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And people don't want to hear that, but it's a similar reality.
Yeah. It's interesting because the other place I was thinking of going, this was what Rob talked about with the S curves and how every S curve is different for every market.
Hmm.